It is so beautiful to see you.
I want you to want me.
Hey out there, live music fans. Welcome to episode number 23 of First Concert Memories, the monthly sidecast from your buddies at the Ugly American Werewolf in London Rock podcast, where we invite a guest on to talk about a particular night in their life when they saw a certain artist for the first time in their lives and the story around the night, what made it special. Last month, we welcomed our buddy John Vernomatic from Metal Mayhem ROC, and he was talking about seeing Ted Nugent for the first time when he was 13 years old. What a blast that was. Not only seeing Ted, but learning what a concert was like. Like, oh, there's an opening band. Oh, there's an encore. Oh, he comes out blazing guns at the start of his set. Really a fun talk with Verno and unlocking some fun memories. But this month's show is a special one because we're going to talk about an artist that Jackson and I and about everyone in my generation wished they had seen, but didn't get the opportunity to do so. And that's Jimi Hendrix, the guitar god, who put all the other guitar gods of his generation to shame, who they all looked up to. That includes people like Eric Clapton and Pete Townsend. And the little footage that we had growing up was mesmerizing to us, especially when you think about Monterey Pop and him burning his guitar. But because he died so young and we never really got to see him go on to do maybe mediocre things or things that didn't do that well, he's always going to be that 25, 26, 27-year-old guitar guy. But obviously we never had a chance to see him. But our buddy, DJ Danny Meyers, up in Cincinnati, did have that opportunity as a 13-year-old at Cincinnati Gardens. And when we learned that, our jaws dropped. We said, Danny, you're coming on the show to tell us about it. It's like, well, look, it was awesome that I got to see him. I didn't take full advantage of it. I was 13 years old. I was running around with my buddies. I was having a good time. So I didn't sit there and document it as I probably should have. Hey, no worries there. We were all young once. The fact that you were 13 and got to see Jimi Hendrix is amazing. We want to hear all about it. And so DJ Danny's coming on to tell the story about how he didn't know what he's doing that night and went to a buddy's house, and all of a sudden he finds himself at the Jimi Hendrix concert. Only time he saw Jimi, his first concert ever. And not only do we hear a little bit about the show, but we talk about how different life was back then versus now, or even when Jackson and I were growing up in the 80s, as far as information and how kids would find out about rock music or who's coming in town or what's going on in the world. Very different in the late 60s than it is today. And so Danny kind of fills us in on a lot of that also. It's a fun conversation we've got to get to here. But first, we do have a little bit of business to take care of. As always, we like to mention we are proud members of the Pantheon Podcast Network, a family of more than 100 different shows. You can learn more at pantheonpodcast.com or follow on socials at Pantheon Pods. You can also find it on the Sirius XM app. And we have to give a shout out to our incredible and beloved sponsor, rarevinyl.com. And they're based in the UK, folks, so you know they've got a lot of great Jimi Hendrix stuff. But they collect from all over the world and they ship out all over the world. They have a lot of rare stuff, mint condition stuff, CDs, LPs, 45s, 12-inch singles, magazines, point of sale stuff from record stores. Amazing collection of over 250,000 items in stock. And if you use the code UGLY, UGLY, you can save 10% off one entire order. Not just one item, but one entire order. So you want to go get a first print Jimi Hendrix UK edition, get that. But then also get a Jimi Hendrix DVD documentary. But then also get an ancient magazine with Jimi on the cover. Go find the 45s that you can't find anywhere else. Buy it all and then use the code UGLY to save a big fat 10% at checkout. So for all you record collectors, go to rarevinyl.com, use the code UGLY. Your record collection is going to thank you. Now back to Danny. I can relate to Danny just because we both kind of grew up in the Midwest. He's maybe a generation older than we are, but I feel like growing up in the 60s and 70s is probably more similar to the way we grew up in the 70s and 80s versus the kids in the 90s and after that. At least that's my opinion. I could be wrong. Bottom line is, I want to hear somebody tell me a story of what it was like to see Jimi Hendrix live in concert. And that's what we got here. So sit back, relax. We've got DJ Danny Meyers of What's Hot in the Strip Clubs telling us all about seeing Jimi Hendrix at the age of 13 live in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys invited me on, man. I had to start thinking about that, because it was so long ago. I was 13 years old. I'm 69 now. So
Wow.
trying to remember back what I was doing when I was 13 years old. And so
That's an amazing thing, though. I mean,
yeah, it really is. I wish I would have appreciated it more than just been some punk running around trying to get in trouble and try to buy beer at 13. And
right.
We'll talk about all that stuff, I guess.
So this is our monthly. We have a weekly show, The Ugly American Werewolf in London, where we'll have artists on to talk about what they're up to, or we'll do classic album reviews, or we'll do concert reviews. But this is one we like to, it's pretty loose. We like to have a guest on to just talk about a special rock and roll memory in your life. And it doesn't have to be the very first show you ever saw, but it's the first time you saw a particular band and how it changed your life. And this is kind of, honestly, Danny, because we're 51, 52 years old. We never got Jimmy died before we were born.
Yeah.
And so we could do a Stones show, like our first Stones show was 89, but we'd rather hear somebody from like the Mick Taylor years, right? And we have our own Kiss show. We just had Brian Slagle of Metal Blade Records talk about seeing the Alive tour, in 76 and how obviously that changed his life to a certain degree. And we were hoping to get someone who had actually seen Hendrix, because obviously ever since we were kids, we've been told about this mythical figure, this left-handed guitar player, Jimmy, and we've seen the documentaries, listened to the tunes, but we just don't have that many first-hand accounts. And so we're pretty excited to have you on, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, just to show you something, this is the shirt I had made when somebody was calling me old.
Yes. It's the truth.
I thought I'd dig that shirt out for this show today. Even though you don't do video, I still got it.
No, that's awesome. Thanks so much.
No
so,
problem.
all right, so you kind of gave us the basics here, right? It was November 15th, 68. You saw Jimi Hendrix at the Cincinnati Gardens, which, is that still there under a different name? Is that, okay.
No, leveled. They leveled it. It was a big deal around here when they did. But when the Gardens first came out, it was the only place you could see a show. In Cincinnati. It was I remember being in, this is a whole nother subject, but I remember being in a band at 17 and getting to play a little local thing down there at the Gardens. And that was the first time I ever played something that big that I didn't even know what monitor speakers were and why you needed them. And boy, when you start saying something and it comes back at you a second later, you realize why the big, the acoustics in that place were terrible. It was made for basketball.
Right. Well, so was it down on the riverfront with all the other, gathering points?
No, it was off of Paddock Road, so a little bit north. Okay. The riverfront area wasn't really built up as it is now, obviously, but
right.
The Gardens was the original. That's the same place I saw Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And
nice.
So, but that's for a whole nother show if you want it.
That's right. We'll hold that for next year. Yeah, we're already starting to line up next year because people like you and Brian have so many great stories, and Amy Linden. Oh man, yeah. But no, okay. And then we learned that it was just called, I don't know if they built it this way, but it was his second North American tour because obviously he's an American, but he kind of broke it in England before he came back to America to kind of be like, hey, I'm Jimmy and I've done this thing. I've got these records. So
yeah, I wouldn't even have known that.
Yeah. All right. So you're 13, you say. Were you a big Hendrix fan? Was it your idea that you really wanted to go?
No, actually, I was a Hendrix fan. Yeah, okay. I've always been a wannabe musician, the kind of musician that really never plays outside mom's garage.
Yep.
And so we were always, thinking we could play Hendrix and thinking because you could do the chords to Purple Haze that made us think we were Hendrix. Right?
Yeah.
And
why not?
So, yeah, I was a fan, but no, we didn't plan on going at all. It was a couple friends of mine and we were sitting over at his house. We're all 13, 14 was the oldest. I was the youngest. And Jimi Hendrix was playing at the Gardens that night. And this is before concerts sold out, right? You could just go down there, buy your ticket and go in.
Yeah. So
my friend asked his dad, he said, Dad, we'd really like to go to the Hendrix concert tonight. He said, okay, I'll take you. And I'm thinking that, so his dad gave us, ready for this, $20 total. And that got us 4 tickets and a pop each.
Wow.
Plus a dime to get to go to the payphone booth and call him when we're ready to be picked up. Dropping off 13 and 14-year-old kids. I didn't tell my mom. Man, my mom would have flipped.
Hi, this is Jim McCarthy of the Arbors, and you're listening to the Ugly American Werewolf in London.
But times were different then. I know some parents would freak out about it, sure, but also they're like, well, as long as I know where you are, Yeah, call me when you're done, right?
Yeah, no payphones, no way of tracking anybody, but you know.
All right, so as you and your buddy said, okay, and his dad kind of took you down there.
Yeah.
So were you just like, had you heard on the radio like Hendrix is coming? It had been like the buzz in school, or
Wow. I think it was on TV news, if I'm not mistaken. It was not that big of a deal, to be honest with you. You know, it wasn't a buzz at school, obviously, you know, because
Right.
I'm in 8th grade. You know, half those kids don't even know what Jimi Hendrix is.
right?
So yeah, that pretty much, you know, I think it was either in the newspaper or on radio that he was going to be there. I don't even know if I knew that the concert was that night. He knew it was that night. I don't even, because we didn't have the information portals that we have now.
So were you pretty straight laced, you know, short hair kids, or were you starting to get a little long at that point, or?
13. Yeah, I think it might have been a couple years after that I started growing it out. And I've gone through so many phases with my hair, short hair, long hair, perms. In the late 70s, I had a big afro.
Well, I'd love to see that. Yeah. No, but, you know, 68, I feel like 67, 68, 69. Before that, you would not have had any kind of long hair, not in Cincinnati, Ohio. You know, you would have had a pretty clean haircut. But then after that, then it wasn't crazy to see kids maybe with it over their ears or towards their shoulders. Am I right about that?
Yeah, because I can remember going to school. And there were 2 families whose parents let the kids grow their hair out. Now, this is back when the Beatles were, you know, really getting big. Remember the Meet the Beatles the cover of the album? You know, everybody said, so long a hair, it doesn't even touch their ears.
Right, exactly.
Bangs is like a bowl cut, you know?
Right.
So, and everybody, oh my gosh, they're hippies. Oh no, you know? And
Yeah.
there was a couple of kids that their parents let them have long hair, and they were the rebels.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you could really pick them out, and they were rare back then. I mean, now kids come all sorts of hair and colors, and it doesn't matter. But back then, if you had actual long hair, you stood out.
Yes.
And speaking of afros, the Jimi Hendrix Experience had 3 incredible ones, especially given a couple of them were white, right?
Yeah, that was I would say, you know, thinking back about it, there's a lot of things I had forgot until you brought this up, and then I started thinking, I said, wait a minute, we did this, and you know, things like that. So, you know, which we can talk about.
All right, so you're just sitting around. There's no pregame ritual. I mean, you're not like listening to Hendrix all day and drinking beers. It's just like you went to your buddy's house. Hey, you want to go? Yeah, sure, let's go. And then all of a sudden you're there, right?
Yeah. I don't know if we were drinking beers. We tried to drink down there, but you know, I don't know. It's hard for a 13-year-old to buy beer even then.
Oh, yeah. No. Was it still 18 then?
What's that?
Was it 18 then?
3-2 beer was 18.
Oh, okay.
2 different types of beer. You had 3.2 and 6%. So if you were 18, you could drink 3.2 beer, which was half the alcohol. If you're 21, you could have 6% or hard liquor, which was crazy because that's where kids got forced to learn how to binge drink. It's only 3.2, so we have to drink twice as much as you guys do to be even.
Sounds about right. It's perfect logic to me. All right, so you get dropped off in the car, and then you get your tickets. $20 gets you all in, gets you a drink. Do you go straight to the seats? Do you kind of wander around? And was this like, you say it's a garden, is it arena? I mean, it's a basketball arena then, right?
Yeah, it was, it's Cincinnati Gardens is what the name of it was, but it was a basketball arena, some other sports from time to time. I think it was a skating rink in the winter, you know, or, you know, where they had that was one of the only skating rinks here in Cincinnati. But yeah, we went in, you know, this is funny because it's now just jogging some memories back. I'm loving doing this show because I'm remembering things. We did walk around. We looked at the merch. And I said, man, we should get some merch. Oh, how much is it? Oh, it's like $1 a shirt. Oh, man. He didn't give us enough money to get a shirt. So, you know, I think we looked around and then we went to our seats, which were way up in the nosebleed because, of course, we didn't buy them until right when we got dropped off.
Right.
I can remember the smell of cigarette smoke being really, really strong in there, you know, because everybody's And of course, the weed, that's coming from every direction. And here we are, little 13, 14-year-old kids getting handed a joint, toke, and you pass it on. So, yeah, we got pretty messed up.
That's fun, though. I mean, that's the way it used to be. And yes, everyone smoked indoors at concerts back then. I mean, really through the 80s and into the 90s. But yeah, that first time you get that big waft of marijuana, especially when the house lights go down, you're like, hey, what is that? I think I know what it is.
Yeah.
And then it comes your way.
Yeah, I don't even know if that was my first time smoking in my life. That might have been.
Wow. See, really uncovering the memories.
Yeah.
You said you were up in the nosebleeds. It sounds like this was a pretty close to being sold out show.
I think it eventually sold out. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but it was that night that it finally, at least I think it was sold out. But yeah, it was a good time. We got dropped off. We went in, we sat down in our seats, as I was saying. And then I think we really irritated the people sitting in front of us. There's a lady in a fur coat, and we're up there just spilling stuff on her fur coat.
Oh, jeez.
It was like a fur collar kind of thing, So they got mad at us, so we decided we're going to leave those seats and run around a little bit. We tried to get backstage. We got close.
Good.
We got close. We did. We got on top of them, but we couldn't get down there. And then security came over and threw us out of there. So
good. I like the mischief. I like the adventure so far. Yeah, that's great.
You're lucky you didn't get thrown out of the whole thing.
Yeah, you're right. Especially for even ordering beer or trying to.
Yeah.
Come on, get out of here.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, nobody really took the laws serious back then. I mean, some of the things I did in life, which is for a whole nother show, but some of the things I did in life, I mean, if I would have done them now, I'd be in jail for life.
I know, and a lot of that came into the 70s and the 80s when we were growing up. I feel like in the 90s, things started to change. You feel that way, Jackson?
Yeah, I think that there was a lot more accountability. Once you get into the cell phone, even if it was everybody didn't have one, there was still they could keep tabs on you. I can imagine that in that time, that 1968, late 60s, early the 70s, there was a lot of change going on. Even in Cincinnati, which was in the middle of the country, I would have really liked to have seen kind of a cross section of that crowd.
Yeah, boy, I don't remember the crowd, honestly. They were rockers, probably predominantly white, but of course Cincinnati at the time was predominantly white. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't really remember demographics or age kind of thing. That's something that is not coming back to me. I don't even think I paid attention, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm gonna guarantee you that if you were there now, you would say to yourself, "These people are so old. It's ridiculous." As a 13-year-old, I can imagine, the woman with the fur coat. Why would you bring that here?
Exactly.
Why?
Yeah, that's I know funny. It's November and all, but it wasn't freezing. I mean,
right. And I mean, still, it's inside. Everybody's going to have a beer in their hand. Probably everybody's going to have a cigarette. Stuff's going to get, burned up, put on you. Yeah, come on.
Yeah, we were hoping, because you don't get to see music videos back then. Realistically, we bought the albums, listened to the albums, didn't really know much about the artist or the band. Anything like that. But we always heard that Jimmy had a flair for busting up his guitar at the end of the set, on the end of every show. And we were hoping he would do that, but he didn't. We were disappointed.
Oh, Jimmy.
Very far away. Takes a lot of energy to get there. If we travel by my dragonfly, though it's not in Spain, but all the same, it's a groovy name, and the wind's just right.
Well, you mentioned the albums. It turns out that Electric Ladyland came out, I don't know, a month before this. I mean, did you already have that one? Did you already have Are You Experienced or Axis or any of those?
Had Are You Experienced? Man, I can't put the times together. Like I say, I'm 69. I was 13.
I know, this is a really long time ago. I understand, yeah.
I can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday. Come on.
Yes, well, I understand that because I can't either. But a seminal moment, when I got my, Led Zeppelin album, the first one, I can kind of remember, I don't remember the date, but I remember where I was in my life and how it felt in my hands and running home to play it. So I don't know if you had any of those memories with Jimmy's albums or not. All right. So a couple of cool bands opened for him on that tour. Do you remember who opened?
I don't even remember an opening band. Do you know the names of the bands that were there? And maybe I could remember if it would jog my memory.
I don't know exactly who opened that night. No, I don't. However, Vanilla Fudge did some nights. Sly and the Family Stone.
I would remember that.
Did New York City in May of '68, but that was probably the first U.S. tour. Soft Machine is another one.
Yeah.
That I guess had done some shows with him. I'm sure that there's somewhere that everyone, knows everything that Jimmy ever did, but
sure. It's interesting. As I was trying to re-jog my memory, I Googled the Hendrix in Cincinnati and got to read some TV or some newspaper articles about that concert and things, and none of them even mentioned an opening band. I'm going to guess, and I'm not positive of this, that there was not an opening band.
Okay, fair enough. I've got confirmation that on September 1st, that's 10 weeks before. September 1st in Denver, Vanilla Fudge and Soft Machine opened for them at Red Rocks. And yes, it was $4, which would track with 4 tickets plus a Coke.
Yep.
For $20, right? Yeah, so that makes sense. But no, I don't have any confirmation that they actually played on your night. But that's okay. Always curious. Because sometimes your first show, you're like, hey, you don't know what to expect. And you see somebody else like, whoa, these guys kick ass. All right. So what was your favorite moment of this night? You're with your buddies. You're getting high. You're trying to sneak beers. What comes back?
Just being a mischievous kid. I think that trying to get backstage, getting in trouble with security, those are the kind of things. But, like I say, just the concert itself was, at least I appreciated some things about the concert. Even though I was only 13, a 3-piece band that could have that full of a sound was just unbelievable, especially for back in the 60s.
Yeah.
There's no synthesizers in the back. There's no click tracks going on. There's no backing vocals, they're pre-recorded. This is 3 people. You got a drummer with a drummer, bass, and Jimmy. And, they just had their marshals mic'd up.
That's for sure.
And yeah. I can remember how full that sound was. That's a memory that will always stay with me.
Can imagine. Now, had you seen like the Monterey Pop stuff? Had that even come out by then? Or had you been aware of Monterey Pop?
I don't, yeah.
No, the release date was like after Christmas '68, so you couldn't have seen the movie. Were you someone who like read the magazines, like Cream Magazine or anything like that, or the Rolling Stone?
I don't think so. Yeah, none of that sounds familiar.
Okay. Well, what was your biggest like song going into the show, like of Jimmy's that you had or you experienced? Yeah. Yeah,
Purple Haze I think would have been the one that I went into looking forward to. Did he do All Along the Watchtower? Was that before then? I'm trying to get my dates together.
No, I hear you, and I did the research because that came out just a few weeks before you saw them.
Oh, okay.
However, and look, here's the thing. The tour stats aren't airtight, right? Some people could remember 5 songs from one night. Some people remember 8 from another night. It doesn't show up on your night, and it really only shows up on one of all the tour dates. So the odds are he didn't play it for you that night, but we're not 100% sure. Yeah.
I was a punk kid.
You were mentioning like reading magazines and stuff, and you said Cream magazine. Looking at this, I'm just a quick Google search here. Mm-hmm. That didn't even come out until 1969.
Okay, and so there was no Cream magazine.
Yeah, Rolling Stone came out started in late of 67. So yeah, you really didn't, as a kid, you really didn't have access to a whole lot of information other than what you could pick up at the record stores.
Yeah, because the news didn't cover anything that was predominant for kids, and things like that. Of course, rock and roll was the bad people listen to rock and roll kind of thing, So it was definitely something that it was a time that you had to learn things for yourself. You weren't able to just ask. I'm not going to say her name Siri because she'll pick up my phone next to me. But
okay, yeah, that's right.
But yeah, that was those were the times we had to do our own research.
Well, it's interesting to me that you somehow I know you said that you would have appreciated it more had you known, how short this was going to be, but something in you knew that you had to be at this show. There was just something, yeah, we need to go and see this.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't my idea. In fact, I think that afternoon, I didn't even know he was playing that night, or maybe I don't think I did. It wasn't oh man, I really wish I could go. This was my friend asked his dad, and he said, yeah, I'll take you down. And, I wasn't an overly huge Hendrix fan, but I knew his music. I liked his music, but to really be able to tell you, I can't even off the top of my head, I knew it back then, but I can't even tell you off the top of my head who his bass player and drummer were. And if you told me, I would know it, but I can't think of it right now.
Do you want me to?
Yeah.
Noel Redding and Mitch Mitchell?
Yeah, okay.
With the twin white afros.
Yeah, man.
Noel was the bass player, right?
That's right.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, now it's coming back to me.
There you go.
All coming back to me now.
It's tough trying to tap into those. I understand. Yeah. And rock and roll was kind of exploding, right? I mean, I know it kind of happened in the 63, 64 era with the British invasion, quote unquote, but because people started to realize, wow, bands can go longer than a year or 18 months or 4 songs or however long they, used to go. There was so much music coming out that they didn't even know what to do with it. So they didn't know what was going to, and record companies to this day don't know what's going to be popular, right? So they're like, we'll just put everything out. Mm-hmm. And so it was kind of an adventure trying to find stuff, but obviously there were songs that would hit the charts and you would hear them on the radio and stuff like that. But it seems like you could go on a real adventure in a record store back in the day and find some really obscure stuff because they don't, they'll make 9 that don't make money because they'll have one hit out of all those, right?
Yeah, I don't remember which record store we went to. I mean, later on in life, it was Peaches and Record Theater, but I think this is all before then. You know what? I remember where I got my records now. It was a department store across the street from where I lived. It was called Arlen's, Arlins, and they had a record department. And in fact, I got my first guitar there. I think it was $22 or $23.
Wow. See, my daughter, people know nothing about department stores there anywhere. That was a big deal back in the day because it's like you go to the department store and mom could go shopping over here and dad could go and they could leave the kids in the toy department and, blah, blah, blah. Sure. Everything's so specialized these days unless you're, maybe at Walmart or something, but that's not the same thing in my opinion. Anyway, but I remember doing that as a kid. Yeah, loving those kinds of stores. And yeah, they would have good deals on records because they bought so many of them, right?
I'm trying to think. The 45s is what, was the single at the time for the younger people who don't know what a 45 is. It's not a gun. It's
it's a 44.
Yeah, it was a faster play record, smaller, 7-inch, I think. I think it was 7, yeah. And so you had one song on each side. And if I'm not mistaken, I remember when we complained that they went from 59 to 69 cents for 45. But if you wanted the whole album, that was like $3,
Yeah. Yeah, you got to save for that, man. Yeah, no doubt. Well, do you remember? I mean, they played Purple Haze that night. Do you remember what your favorite song of the evening was?
I would take a guess that it would have been Purple Haze, but I can remember I knew most of the songs that they played. I do remember that. I couldn't tell you how long they played for. I wouldn't even know that. But
well, you guys were running around trying to get beer the whole time, right?
Yeah, we weren't even really paying attention to the band that much. All of a sudden, something would come on. But yeah, we did want to watch him bust up a guitar at the end, and he didn't do it. That was our disappointment.
Or at least light it on fire.
Something.
Yeah, I don't know if he had started doing that. I'm thinking it was Woodstock, which was after this. Am I right? What year was Woodstock?
Woodstock was 69, but Monterey Pop was 67, and that's when he did it. The film didn't come out for another 6 or 7 weeks after you saw him, but obviously he did it. The movie came out in late 68, so maybe if you had some kind of a magazine, but again, like you said, there is no Rolling Stone, or barely. There is no Cream. There's nothing, so
internet.
There's no internet. There's no movie about it. And like you said, TV isn't for children. It's for old white people who come home and sit down and smoke and drink whiskey basically every night, right?
And if you didn't live in a big city, you didn't even get TV because, we didn't have cable. And, I can remember the outskirts cities. I was in Cincinnati. I was fine. We got the 3 local channels here in Cincinnati and could sometimes pick up the 2 in Dayton. But, if you lived, I know people live down in the middle of Kentucky that didn't even know what a TV was, because it didn't pick up. Well, they knew what it was. Or you would see them have one of these big monstrous towers in their backyard to go way up and a big antenna on the top of it so they could pick up some news. But, the news, they only covered a certain amount of people.
Hey, it's Brian Slagle. I'm the CEO of Metal Blade Records, and you're listening to the Ugly American Werewolf in London show.
So did you ever just sit and say, hey, I mean, I know at the end you're sitting to see if he's going to smash his guitar, but you ever just like watch him play at all and say, wow, he's really amazing?
I'm sure we did. It wasn't all just running around and getting in trouble. Probably the first half hour of it, we were probably paying a lot more attention until we got that lady in front of us upset.
Right.
And that's what started running around. But yeah, the first part of it, I can't exactly give you a time, but the first part of it, we were sitting in our seats.
All right, so what was the biggest downer on the whole night? Was that you never scored any beer, or he didn't break his guitar, or?
Let's see. My biggest fear that was going to happen was my parents were going to find out that I went down there. Yeah, I mean, it was probably the beer, maybe the that we couldn't get a T-shirt. Maybe because we didn't get to meet him. Like, I really didn't think we would. But it was really, I don't remember much negative about it, except I didn't appreciate it enough.
Well, you're young. So you weren't staying the night at your buddy's house. You were just like over there. And then what, did you walk home afterwards? Does dad drop you off? Or?
Boy, I think he probably went back to my friend's house and then walked home from there.
Gotcha.
Would be a good guess. I couldn't even tell you. I guess I could search it, but I couldn't even tell you what night of the week that was. If that was even a school night or you got to keep Google in front of you.
Oh, yeah, I guess I can here.
And no one at home gave you a hard time for reeking.
It was a Friday. It was a Friday.
Oh, okay. That makes sense why you went then.
Yeah. Because, a lot of times, when you're a kid, there's times your parents think you're asleep in your room and you've already jumped out the window. Right. And all that stuff. So, it could even have been a situation of that, hey, I'm going to bed early, Mom, see you. And then you sneak out and then you just jump back in the window.
Go to your buddy's house. Hey, you want to go to Jimi Hendrix? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm not saying that that's what happened, but those were the kind of things we did as kids.
I did the same thing. Yes, it was I guess we're not exactly the same generation, but I feel like we're closer than the generation that came after us. To be honest, like I'm closer to a baby boomer as a Gen Xer than I am to millennials or whatever these idiots are who are younger than me.
Well, I think the world progressed slower then, and that's probably because of the information portals, the internet, and things like that. I think that's why the world sped up, because there was more information. Now you can just Google something if you want to write an article about it. You can chat GPT an article. You're sending it to school. Now, back then we had to run down to the library, check out a book, or if you were really lucky, your parents bought the encyclopedias, which of course were outdated 10 years.
Right. Yeah. Immediately almost, but
yeah.
But you still had to put the work in. That was the thing. Now you have to put no work in. At least then you really had to want to know about the information.
Yeah, I don't understand how the teachers aren't able to tell the difference between if you really wrote it or if Chat GPT wrote it. That's just another big challenge for the teachers.
Well, the thing I kind of worry about, because I have a 10-year-old, I'm like, well, how do you have to learn to spell, right? It's important to learn to spell. And I'm like, but is it? Because they have vocabulary fix on every single thing they do, right? So you type it wrong, it'll say, this is the right way to spell that. It's like, is it important? It's important to me because I think it makes you intelligent and better to understand the language. But is it the most important thing? I don't know.
Yeah, and it's still with all the correction that's built into these things, kids still text everything wrong. I think it's on purpose. Be honest with you, like I'm sometimes coming over to see you with the letter U, or you're going YR. Those kind of all the internet shortcuts.
It's a speed thing, yeah. So, all right, did you ever see Jimmy again after that?
No, I don't think it was that much. He died in
71.
71. Okay.
I think it was, yeah.
Okay. So he, and what's really weird is we probably didn't know he died for a couple of days, until it came on the news, because it's not like, like today, Facebook, he dies and everybody knows about it. We probably didn't know. And then somebody said, hey, Jimi Hendrix died. Oh man, that sucks. I think we had a real different view of death back then than we do now.
Well, yeah. No doubt, man. When you're a kid and you haven't really lost anyone seriously or, seen anyone die or anything like that, and it's not going to happen to you forever, then you say, oh, well, that sucks, or, oh, well. You don't realize how final and horrible it is, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think another really cool memory that took a while to develop was just the appreciation I started having for it as I got older and older. And now the look on people's faces when I tell them that I saw Jimi Hendrix. You tell that to anybody, 20, 30, 40, 50. You say, I saw Jimi Hendrix. And oh, man, you're the luckiest person in the world. So it is a really big thing. Anytime, somebody gets on Facebook and says, what's your first concert you ever went to? Oh, I'm answering that one.
Yes.
Well, that was even us.
It was us. Yeah, literally.
Yeah. So he sends you want to talk to Danny Myers? Yeah, sure. What did he go see? Jimi Hendrix. What? I'm sorry, what? Say that again? Because that can't be right. That is awesome. You are in a very, very small club.
Yeah. It was great times back then for sure.
So was this your first ever show, or had you seen other shows previous to that?
First concert, I would have to say first show as well. At 13, I don't think I was able to go to, we watched a lot of them on TV on, what was it? Lawrence Welk show? No, not Lawrence Welk. Ed Sullivan show. Ed Sullivan show had a lot of the bands that we would all get to see. Saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan's show, and the women going crazy, throwing their little handkerchiefs around, trying to get their attention and crying, and we'd be laughing about it. And of course, it's funny because after they're done playing, of course, the song fades out, and then they stop playing. It's like, come on, you were playing the record underneath that.
They're not playing live, yeah. Well, so when you would watch that stuff, would you watch it with your parents, and you're like, oh, this is so cool, and your parents are like, what is this rubbish? Yeah, it's funny because I go through old pictures of my family, and my family, my mom, dad, 3 brothers and 1 sister, and I would sit on the couch. I mean, that was the evening thing. We all sat together. We would all watch whatever TV was on. After that was over, we'd all go down to United Dairy Farmers on Sunday and get our chocolate shake or chocolate malt. Yeah. I mean, that was just, the family, we did things together. There's so many pictures that I was going through recently that we found in my parents. My mom, when she passed, we found a bunch of albums and stuff and pictures. And it's like every single thing, we're not only the pictures, but the pictures we were all had a tie on. You never got your picture taken without a tie on. That was the big thing. Yeah, and there's no casual pictures back then. Well, what was the big rock station in Cincinnati back then? WEBN, which is still the biggest rock station here in Cincinnati. But it's funny, what I do remember is WEBN, I can't remember what their regular music format was, but at a certain time of the night, they switched over to a show called Jelly Pudding. And that's when they started bringing in the rock. So it wasn't a 24/7 rock station. Oh. That was the breakout of rock music for the kids to listen to. And I can't remember if that was every night at a certain time. I have some friends at that station. I should ask them. Yeah, it'd be fascinating to learn. I mean, my first guess would have been WKRP, of course, but that's for a different reason. One of my favorite. I think that might have been the show that talked me into being a DJ. I was a DJ for, 50 years. So on the radio, doing shows? I did radio for a little bit, mostly club. I started DJing in the mid-'70s. Okay. And that would have been the disco era. Our band was, we had a band that wasn't getting any attention, as I said, and we charged $125 for the full band and everybody to, get down there. And all of a sudden disco came in. And these clubs, it's like, wait a minute, they're not even playing, they're just playing a record. You guys are just so excited about them playing a record. We couldn't reach our fingers around that. So then I finally became a disco DJ in about 70, right when Saturday Night Fever, Casey and the Sunshine Band, Donna Summer was really big. So probably late 70s is when I started making my living as a DJ. Did that through the 80s, the major clubs in Cincinnati, through the 90s, up until about 94 or 95 is when I ended up it was just too hard to find a job because, when I was growing up, clubs were open 5 to 7 nights a week. So you had a 5-night-a-week job, right? 9 to 2:30. The more that went on, the more time went on, the more it was like a DJ gets a night here, a night there. It's like, But that's when I learned the strip club business. I was out of work and a friend of mine said, hey, Danny, there's an opening up here at Diamonds Cabaret. And I'm like, no, not me. No, that's beneath me to go to a strip club and try to sound like this. Yeah. That was the whole impression that we had of what a strip club DJ. And now on the main stage, put your heads together for Crystal. That's it. We call that the puke voice. Puke voice, and it was really big, of course, in the 80s. What's the 70s, 80s? Wolfman Jack. When was 70s mostly, yeah. Okay, that was the voice that we all tried to achieve. That real
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And everything had to be a creative thing that you said. It wasn't just talking to people. It was a creative line that you had to come up with and pre-wrote it down, and then bring your card up and read it. But yeah, then I got into strip clubs in about 96, was in that for a full time up until about 2 years ago. I decided I'm tired of being in the nightclub business. I'm tired of being up till 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m. and going to bed.
Yeah.
And I did that for so many years. So so I retired from all that. Now I sit here in my room and talk on my microphone and make a living doing it.
Yeah, and your show, What's Hot in Strip Clubs, doing really well. Tell us how you decided to do that and how you do it, and how it all works.
Sure. I am a member of PANDA, and PANDA stands for Professional Adult Nightclub DJ Association. So we were a group of strip club DJs, and it all started, I think 2012 is when this all started. And it basically, an internet thing. I think Facebook had just been coming out, and so we had that group going for that. And we started sharing music ideas between all the other DJs around the country about what's popular and what's not. Then a friend of mine decided, well, everybody send me what your new songs are that have grabbed your attention, and I'm going to make a top 10 out of it. Okay. So he did that for a while, and that's when podcasts were just starting, and you had to have so much equipment to do a podcast. And I said, I'm an ex-musician. I know how this stuff works. I'm going to start a podcast. So I brought him on, and we started doing the little countdown thing. And then, that was the Panda Top 20. Now we do Panda Top 20 still. That's over 10 years old now, by the way. That's once a month for that. We do Panda Off the Charts, which is where Bob Chiappardi, who's a music promoter, gets artists who want to be broke into the strip clubs, and he gets them on our show once a month. So, because most of our, actually, I shouldn't say most. It used to be most of our listeners were strip club industry people, mostly DJs, but now it has really crossed over to the open market. Alon Fong and I are the two people that put all of this stuff together. And, we've got people that have never been in a strip club, that don't care about strip clubs, but they want to know what's being played in them, because a lot of times we do break the new music in strip clubs.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask, that's what these DJs are looking for, right? When they listen to your show, they're looking for new stuff to play.
Yeah. Yeah, they're listening. We break. The top 20 is a combination of what all the other DJs around the country are playing that report. Alon Fong, my podcast partner, is our chart professor. They all send them to him, and he compiles all the data. Then we have Off the Charts, which is when we bring some kind of an artist on. They might be a new artist. They may be an old classic artist that we get to bring on. John Karabi was just on with us about a month ago, I think.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, John Karabi's on. But that show is the three of us main people, Bob, Alon, and I. We pick some brand new music that we think is going to be popular before it is popular. We call it Tomorrow's Hits Today.
Gotcha. All right. So would you get like porn stars and like nationwide strippers come in with their own songs, or would they say, hey, what have you got for me tonight? And you would go over it with them?
Yeah, well, we would get the adult entertainment industry. I worked with a few when I got into the strip club business. They were traveling around, the Jenna Jamesons, the people like that. But yeah, most of them would come in and tell you the songs, or they would bring them into you. CD burners were just starting to be a big thing back then when we first started in the business. Right. We had mini discs. That was the way you put everything on. But when I first started DJing, even in strip clubs, it was records, it was CDs, but of course it was the album CD. So you had, let's see, I got to get this CD. It's track number 3, and we forward 18 seconds and then start, and I got 10 seconds to talk, and it was a completely different thing. But yeah, I remember when I had one of the first CD burners ever. And it was $2,800 for this thing. It recorded at real time, it did have a digital input that you could go from some things. There wasn't a lot of digital back then, but like mini discs over to CDs, you could do that digitally. But you still had to stop it in between tracks. You still had to check your levels to make sure it was recording right. But when we were able to start making CDs for people, that was the biggest thing. And the porn stars would come in and they'd say, well, these are the 5 songs that I want. And you'd get them and you'd play them, but I would always make them their own CDs so they could travel around, and that made me a lot of money. I got tipped heavily for making personal CDs.
Can I guess that maybe you weren't always tipped in cash, but in other ways?
I I was actually one of the more tame strip club DJs.
Okay.
There are stories about people that do that. Myself, I never really overly played the field. I didn't date that many strippers, and the ones I did were kind of longer term relationships where we lived together. So as far as playing around the field, not that much for me. Sorry, I don't have any great stories.
Well, since you don't, that's why you're still here, I would imagine.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it never got me fired,
Right.
Not trying to do coke off of a stripper's ass, which is the typical thing that people like to talk about. Even rock musicians like to talk about. I never did coke, so it's pretty tame life, other than trying to drink at the Hendrix concert.
You're 13, yeah. By the way, I misspoke. He actually died in September of 70, not 71. So you did see him within 2 years of his passing.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember he was 28 when he passed, if I'm not mistaken.
He's 27.
27.
Yeah, because he was the 27 club. Yeah.
Okay, I thought wasn't there a 28 club too? It was like Janis Joplin passed at 20 at the same. I thought it was 28. Maybe it's the 20.
It's 27. Yeah, it's the 27 club.
But Janis Joplin,
Jim Morrison.
Jim Morrison died.
Kurt Cobain. Yeah, it's a pretty robust club, actually. It's kind of weird. But was Brian Jones 27? I think maybe not, but I think he's close. So I mean, yeah, it's kind of odd that they all died at that age. Yeah.
So that means Hendrix was 25 when I saw him.
All right. So yeah, that's right. So then, all right. So now you got your first show under your belt. Did that make you say, hey, now I'm going to go check out as many shows as I can? Because Cincinnati gets a lot of shows, always has, still does to this day.
We did. Cincinnati Gardens was the home for all of these things. So yeah, we started going to other concerts. I got to see James Gang with Joe Walsh, but that was up at the Columbus Fairgrounds because
sure.
Joe Walsh is actually from Columbus or spent a lot of time in Columbus. I don't know if he was born there or not, but he did live there for a while. I think James Gang formed in Columbus, if I'm not mistaken. Emerson, Lake and Palmer was awesome. I got to see them in '73. That's the year I graduated high school. Yes, I was always a big fan of Yes, and with Roundabout and all those songs. Mm-hmm. We got to see them. One of my favorite bands that I don't know if a lot of people know about them was Wishbone Ash. Wishbone Ash was a big one for me, especially being I was trying to be a bass player at the time, and like I say, we were so unsuccessful, but we thought we were good. And we really thought we were, and it didn't. I wish. Well, I'm glad we don't have recordings of back then because it would have been pitiful. I think we sped every song up just ridiculously fast. You're not even realizing it.
Well, that explains as a bass player why you wanted to go see Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Yes, and we've had Carl Palmer and Steve Howe on our show before.
Oh wow!
So we might just have to have you back on to talk about one of those nights, my friend. In 2026, yeah,
sure.
Well, look, Danny, this has been a lot of fun, man. I really appreciate
it.
It has.
I enjoy you guys. You guys are a good team, a good duo. You ask good questions, and trust me, it's been a pleasure to be on your show.
Well, thank you.
Well, thanks so much. You are definitely welcome back. Do you have anything to plug that you'd like our listeners to hear, or where to find you, or anything like that?
Yeah. Well, my personal website is DannyMeyers.com, MEYERS. You can also find most of my podcasts there. And there's also a link there to our What's Hot in the Strip Clubs, which is what'shotitsc.com. Didn't want to spread the whole thing out.
Yep, right.
Yes, it's funny when we came up with that domain name, What's Hot ITSC. So it would be a little bit shorter. And then after we put it on, we got it out, and somebody said, you realize that Show Tits is in your domain? And we had never even thought about that. Show Tits. Yeah. So, yeah, we got that. And, right now I'm just doing voiceover work. I'm a traveling MC for a lot of the show club or the showgirl competitions, the top show competitions in the world. Actually, I'll be going to Memphis, Tennessee for the it's called the Exotic Dancer Invitationals. The top showgirls in the east of the country. Then a couple of months later, we're going out to Denver. The top showgirls of the west will meet.
Wow.
Also be having our grand finals in Vegas. That'll be in August. And I also MC the Stripper Olympics. And yes, there is such a thing as Stripper Olympics. That's in Louisiana. And that is Cirque du Soleil minus a lot of clothing.
Wow.
And the newest one that I picked up is called House of Sin. And this is something I had to learn a lot about. This is the alternative lifestyle. This is the goth people. This is the girls that really go out there, you know, the tattoos and the face piercings and everything else. And they really want to go. And it's very demonic, you know, the outfits and things, you know, that they wear. But yeah, I'll be doing that one again this year in June in, I think it's pronounced Wausau, Wisconsin, WASAU or something like that. So that's where you can find me all. And all those dates are on my website at DannyMyers.com.
All right, my brother. Well, hey, look, thank you so much. And keep doing what you're doing, man. Keep getting out there and finding the new tunes, the new beats. And you're definitely welcome back if we can ever do anything for you guys. Can't imagine what it is because I do not go to strip clubs. But just reach out, man. We're here for you.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks, guys, a lot.
Thank you, Danny. Have a good night, bro. It's amazing that Danny had the chance to see Jimi Hendrix when he was a teenager. How many people can say Jimi Hendrix came to my town here in the Midwest? And it's not his fault that it's been more than 55 years. The memories are a little cloudy and he was kind of a kid anyway. Like he said during the show, when he tells people that he saw Jimi Hendrix live, he gets all sorts of respect. And when we created First Concert Memories, we wanted to not only hear about bands that we'd seen live, maybe earlier in their career when we didn't have the chance, but we wanted to hear about bands that we never had the opportunity to see live because maybe they died before we were born, like Jimi Hendrix. I remember in high school when I'm really getting into rock music and guitars, Jimi Hendrix was still everything. Even though he'd been gone for maybe 16, 17 years, he was heralded as this guitar god. And since then, obviously, there have been more releases and lots of live albums, some more found footage and things like that. So there's more to digest and be able to see of Jimi. But that's an advantage that we have that Danny didn't have before he went to see Jimi. There was no MTV. There was barely any TV at all. And there certainly wasn't a lot for young people. Maybe you see one rock band a week on one show. Rolling Stone was in its infancy. There were no other really rock mags or rags out there that gave kids a chance to learn more about it. They had to hear it on the radio. They had to hear from their friends. They had to go to the record store. That's it. But obviously Jimi had penetrated into the suburbs there, into the Midwest, where both I and Danny grew up. And Jimi's been part of the zeitgeist long after his death now. 55 years later, we're still talking about him. And maybe though he didn't take full advantage and just sit there and soak it up and memorize every note that Jimi hit, he still was there. He went, he experienced it. You're 13. It's 1968. Taking mental snapshots that you can come back to 50, 60 years later isn't in your head at the moment. You're with your buddies. You're having a good time. You're soaking in a concert. It's Jimi Hendrix. You're running around trying to buy beer. You're trying to figure out a way to get backstage. That's a fun night. And that's a concert memory worth sharing and memorializing here on the show. So we thank DJ Danny for coming on and sharing that night with us. Sounds like he's got some more he could also share with us down the line. So maybe we'll be seeing him in the future. I hope so. And we want to know from you, which was your first concert memory? Which band really turned you on to rock and roll after you saw them live? What was a crazy night in your life? Tell us. Email us at uglyamericanwerewolf@gmail.com, and you can let us know the bands and the albums and the concerts and the rock properties you want to hear us talk about on Ugly American Werewolf in London or on First Concert Memories. Please be sure to download and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Those downloads are the lifeblood of growing our show. And if you're thinking about it, please go give us a 5-star review. It just means the world to us. It helps us find more rockers like you. And if you send it our way, we might just read it on an episode. Thanks as always to Pantheon Podcast for making us part of the family. And thanks to our sponsor, rarevinyl.com, where if you use the code UGLY, you could save 10% off one entire order. There are lots of great Jimi relics there. Go save a big fat 10% on your Jimi relics at rarevinyl.com. And that's it for this month on First Concert Memories. We have some more fun stories coming up from bands that we have seen and hadn't seen, and guests with some great stories to tell. Plus, we've got great concert album reviews and special guests coming up on our weekly show, Ugly American Werewolf in London. So you're going to have to stay tuned. And to all you rockers all around the world, be cool and keep going to see live music. It's the best way to keep rock alive.